Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's time for the Brown Sports Bag. From the heart of the Barrens, a weekly local sports machine. Alongside John Butler, here's your host, James Brown.
Well, John, the way things work out for this show is that we've got to talk about the 15th district because it got played all of last week. And the 4th Region girls got started on Sunday because of the scheduling, which we discussed the last couple of shows.
Well, they should have waited to after our Monday show, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's rude.
They should have played 4 games tonight.
They never considered us, did they?
No, we were never in their thoughts. So we get to talk about at least the first couple of games of the girls' 4th Region tournament, and the other 2 games are tonight.
There goes our predictions.
Well, yeah.
Makes it a little easier.
Yeah, go ahead. Make your predictions of how things are going to work out, John. So let's start off with the 4th Region because it is ongoing, and we do have a couple of games tonight. So let's start off with the games that will be played tonight. The first one is Metcalfe County and Logan County. And I think that game, if you like high-scoring, fast-paced basketball, that game will probably fit that category, depending on whether or not those teams make their shots. And then the second game, that game tips at 6 at Diddle Arena in Bowling Green. And the second game is Barron County versus Warren East. And I think that'll be a pretty interesting game. Although
both games can actually be high-scoring.
That is true. They could be because Barron's going to press, and Warren East has gotten a lot better at scoring in transition.
If both teams, all 4 teams, adapt to Diddle Arena, the first game at Diddle is normally not easy. You saw that yesterday.
Right.
I mean, the halftime score of Glasgow-Russell County, 2 teams, they're there almost every year with 17-9.
Uh-huh. Well, I tell you another interesting thing that I saw out of that is you got the 3 lines on the floor for the three-point shot. And I saw in the Bowling Green-Russellville game, the girls from Russellville were pulling up from outside the third one.
It bothered us when they had 2 lines back when I was coaching.
Yeah. And
it bothered our team. And we went back to the gym after we survived the first round of a region, and we added we added a second mark.
You taped it down so you guys could practice being in front of that one behind the other one?
Exactly right.
Yeah.
We actually did that because, it's our kids. In fact, the Russell County coach said that yesterday at halftime.
Yeah.
He was on the radio. He said at halftime that, we're shooting past – we're shooting at the college at the college and actually past the college mark.
Yeah.
And we got to, it's one of the things we got to talk about.
Yeah.
Got to move in.
Well, and we'll talk about the Glasgow Russell County game here in a little bit because apparently what he talked about at halftime paid off because they hit all of 3 threes in the game and they were all in the fourth quarter. But real quick, let's get back to these 2 games tonight. Metcalfe, Logan County. The thing about that game is Metcalfe's not real big. They're going to shoot a lot of threes. And Logan County has a couple of guards that can score, and they have a big girl inside. And I just imagine Metcalfe's going to do everything they can to keep the big girl out of the game, at least offensively.
Yeah, I mean, that's –
or defensively even.
Well, I assume that's right. I mean, Metcalfe is they're very dangerous when they're making shots.
Yeah.
And they're very – now – the problem with that is they're very reliant on that shot, and that's a shot that can kind of, come and go.
Yeah, the three-pointer.
Yeah, and as we mentioned, Diddle, I think it's a very good shooting environment at Diddle, but it's different. You kind of got to get used to it a little bit.
Yeah.
So
your background is way far away.
It is.
And it's very different than a high school
that's
gym
correct.
in that regard too.
Now Metcalfe had Russell County beat.
Yes.
So if you want to go comparison of scores. They had an opportunity to beat Russell County at the end of they led Russell County in the entire finals of the district, and actually had a 3-point lead with about 14 seconds to go and just couldn't hang on, then lost in overtime. So Metcalfe, obviously on their best night, is good enough to win, and I wouldn't be surprised if they do win. Now Logan has probably been the surprise team of the region in terms of its I think most people felt like they would probably be a little bit better record-wise with the Van Zandt girls, who are very experienced, good guards, and the Nichols kid in the inside. I think it's Knuckles or Nichols, on the inside, and they've got most of their players back, and they were semifinals of the region last year and won 20 games, and it seems like they never kind of got it going this year.
Been very inconsistent.
It's been very inconsistent. Well, I don't know. They've kind of been consistently inconsistent. I mean, they just have never really hit the level that I think most people expected of them.
Yeah. They have a lot of games where you look and either they won big or they got beat pretty badly.
And it's been kind of an odd year, but the postseason gives you second life, and they're coming in as district champions, and it's a team that Logan beat Metcalf last year down there in a pretty entertaining game. But it's a game that I think it's a 50-50 game that can go probably either way tonight. Mm-hmm. And obviously, TJ Coffey, TJ Thomas, my former player, is head coach at Metcalf, and I'd love to see them do well tonight. And it's I do agree with you. I think if both teams especially are making shots, it could be a very entertaining and probably high-scoring game.
Yeah. And then the second game, as we mentioned, is that Barron County Warren East game. And Barron survived a game against Warren East back earlier in the season. They had a big lead in the game. I think they ended up winning by 4. Warren East made a rally in the fourth quarter.
Made a big rally. Took the lead, I believe.
Yeah, which – not surprising, Warren East did that a lot actually during this year. I think they had a game against Greenwood where they outscored them like 20-0 in the fourth quarter.
Well, I think Elizabeth Bertram had 35.
Yeah,
it's both teams play very similar. Mm-hmm. The difference is that Barron has more definitely postseason experience.
Yeah,
they've got arguably the best player in the region in Elizabeth Bertram.
Yeah.
And with a lot of experience on that floor.
Mm-hmm.
If I was Warren East, the thing I'd worry about from a coaching perspective of Warren East, they have not been there.
Yeah.
It's been a long time since they've been there. Now, they were perennially there every year, but this group has not been there for a while.
Right.
And at least
I think they had not been there in 12 years.
So that's that kind of that shock and awe factor actually makes a difference.
Mm-hmm.
And if they get too far behind from Barron, even though Warren East has showed the ability to come back, that would make it very difficult. I think Barron is. I think it's a collision course between Barron and Bowling Green.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, we've said it all year. I felt like they've been by far the best two teams in the region, and it looks like they could be on that collision course. Though Warren East has showed at times the capabilities of pulling these upsets off, and they've had a really, really good year. Give Jenny Jones is who I remember as coach of Warren East. You got to give her a lot of credit because they have made a monster jump this year.
Yeah. If I'm Barron, I know that Warren East has a lot of players that can do things, but the one that probably would scare me would be Lucy Patterson because she can break the press by herself, and she can finish at the rim quite a bit.
I mean, she's athletic and so forth, and
pretty long too.
It is, and one of the keys tonight is can East break Barron's press?
Yeah,
because Barron tends to be most successful when they turn people over.
Mm-hmm.
That's generally, outside of Elizabeth Bertram, their biggest weapon is the ability to turn people over. They're really good. Murphy's really, really good defensively in particular, but they're really good on the front end of that press with Raven Ennis or Macy Lockhart. They're long. And Warren East is going to have to not turn the ball over as much as some of these teams who've been playing Barron has been turning it over. It has an opportunity to be another high-scoring game because if you're shooting layups, if both teams are breaking pressure,
right?
The game could be another high-scoring game. It's just interesting to see how Warren East handles this brand new atmosphere. Now, the good part for East is their kids are used to playing big games, just not necessarily big basketball games.
Yeah, big softball games.
That's correct.
They've got a number of their better softball players out there playing basketball.
That's correct.
So the pressure of championship caliber sports is not new to them. The pressure of playing in Diddle Arena as a basketball team is.
That's correct.
And one thing too, all these games will be broadcast on 103.7 Nash Icon, and they'll simulcast here on this station, and you can listen to them online on 104thescore.com.
Jay Turner and whoever.
Yeah, somebody he'll have somebody there with him.
Oh, tonight's Robert.
Is he? He's got Robert with him?
Right.
Yeah, he had a cast of Monroe characters last night.
He always has different people for these games.
Yeah, so it's you get all kinds of interesting perspectives as you listen to that broadcast. Real quick, let's talk about the games that happened last night. Bowling Green Russellville Bowling Green was pretty much what you expect them to be. They were all over them. Sanaya Shelton was good. Kiosden Jones was good. And, Calvin Head mixes it up with his inside players. He has Meadow Tisdale. The funny thing is Shelton and Tisdale are just freshmen. So I'm about to make a prediction.
Uh-oh.
If Barron does not get Bowling Green this year, and I think Barron's a team that has the best chance to do it, to knock off Bowling Green this year, the next 3 years will probably belong to Bowling Green. Because, those two girls, Shelton and Tisdale, are freshmen. They're both – Shelton's a good all-around basketball player. Tisdale's just physically intimidating, I think. So they're in pretty good shape. No one else seems to have the talent necessarily coming up that Bowling Green does over the next few years. So you better get them this year, in my opinion. But real quick, so they won that game pretty handily against Russellville. Russellville has a couple of good young players as well, but they just could not, over the course of the game, they couldn't handle the pressure. And then the Glasgow Lady Scotties lost to Russell County. It was kind of a flashback in a way because I think it was 3 years ago after Russell County had won the region and gone to the state tournament. They came in the next year as one of the teams expected to have a chance to win the region, and Glasgow knocked them off in the first round of the region. Pretty big upset. It was a good win for Glasgow that year. And I think that's kind of the way that game went last night. Ashanti Gore had 4 fouls on her in the fourth quarter, and so she missed long stretches of the game there at the end. Glasgow was up 36-31, I think, with about 2.5 minutes to go, somewhere in there, 3 minutes to go, and Russell County scored the final 9 points of the game. Star Markham had a big game to finish.
She's a good player.
She is indeed. She finished the game strong. They hit a couple of threes during that stretch, which were most of the only threes they hit.
I think Elkins hit one of them, right?
Yeah, she ended up hitting 2 in the fourth quarter, and another girl whose name I can't remember because, as Justin pointed out in the post-game interview, she was not known for her three-point shooting.
Well, those games hurt because
they
hurt in the sense that you feel like, and every coach has lost games this way, you feel like you're in control of the game.
Yeah.
And Glasgow was.
Yeah, they were up 31-21 with like 5 minutes to go in the
That's
game.
correct. 10-point lead in the fourth quarter. You win that about 90% of the time or more.
Yeah.
17-9 at halftime. Incredibly low-scoring game. And then, the one issue that Glasgow has had all year that has at times have coming back to bite them has been ball handling.
Yeah.
And the one way that you can lose leads late in the game is turn the ball over.
Yep.
Give up threes to your opponent. Or miss
offensive rebounds, which hurt as well.
Which shouldn't hurt Glasgow because Glasgow is a good defensive rebounding team.
Well, that was when Gore wasn't in there, too.
But it did.
Yeah.
But it came back to bite them, and then that switch turned on Russell County, where they found a way to come back like they found a way to come back against Metcalf. They didn't have to go too far back in their memory to remember what to do. Mm-hmm. And sometimes when that momentum switches, it happened to Glasgow boys, too. We'll talk about that in the next segment.
Yeah.
When that momentum switches, and if it switches at the wrong time, sometimes there's nothing that you necessarily can do about it. But there's so many things that can go wrong.
Yeah.
Turn the ball over, giving up threes, and then just not getting stops. If you just look at, Glasgow could have conceivably not even scored, but if they got stops, then they could have still hung on and win. But you got to give Russell County credit. They got the stop at the end, got the rebound off the missed three, and then went down there and made their free throws. Mm-hmm. Give the Markham player; she's really good. When I saw her against Barron, I really liked her game. She's very athletic.
Yeah,
moves well. Not a great shooter, but she can finish.
Yeah, she's pretty good at finishing after contact. That's one of the things she does really well from what I saw.
Barron ended up winning by 20 earlier against Russell County. I thought Russell County had enough ingredients where I could see where they won 20.
Yeah.
And give them credit. They earned it, and it's a tough way to go out for Glasgow. Dynasty Page had a great game.
Yes, she did.
She shot the ball very well.
Mm-hmm. Had 17 points.
Yeah, and she's the only real offensive player that played well.
Yeah.
I think Gore only had, 9?
Yeah.
And Adwell only 2, I believe.
She had 3 points.
Three
but she
points.
only hit one shot. The other was a free throw.
So, Dynasty Page played super, but, it's anytime that you lose leads, those are the ones that haunt you because you think as a coach, what could I do? But it happens at every level.
It does.
It happened in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
I mean, it happens in college basketball, I mean, it just these things happen.
Yeah.
And it's going to happen at high school as well.
Yeah. One of the things I think may have been overlooked was Kayla Bradley had hurt her ankle in practice right
She
before
was
the
kind of the
district
glue of this team.
I always thought she was kind of the heart of the team because she was the player that did a lot of the dirty work, didn't show up in the stat sheets, got loose balls, played defense.
Kind of like Hughes from last year, right?
Yeah, very much. And so, when she got hurt, I think what happened was she tried to put forth the effort, but at some point in time, that injury mixed with fatigue, I think, probably just affects you in ways that aren't all that relevant even to you as a player. You know what I mean? You just can't do some things you're used to doing, and maybe that probably gets frustrating. But I thought that probably had an impact both in the district tournament because we saw when she was not in the game, she didn't start against Allen County. They got down big, Glasgow did, and then she came in and provided that spark. And then I think maybe in the second quarter when they lost to Barron, the fatigue kicked in and that injury kicked in. And I thought late in that game against Russell County that was part of what was going on because even in the past when Ashanti Gorse had foul trouble, you could expect Bradley or maybe even Adwell to make some of those plays to fill in that gap. And it just didn't really happen in the fourth quarter for the Lady Scotties.
It didn't. But if it wasn't for her, Bradley, I don't know if they got out of the district.
Well, it sure looked like they weren't.
Because they were in serious trouble in the first round of district against Allen.
Yeah, they were.
And I think she was a big, big key to getting over the hump.
That's right. A couple of quick things about this particular senior class. I mean, we have Bradley and we have Ashanti Gore who have played all 4 years. And then we have Olivia Christian, who I think has played a couple of years, and then Camden Short, who came over from GCA this year. If you throw in Gore and Bradley, they are 90-33 in their 4 years at Glasgow High School. This 10-year run for Glasgow is the best 10-year run in the history of the program because when the girls basketball was resanctioned in the mid-'70s, Glasgow – what's funny is Barron, Allen, and Glasgow were probably the three best girls teams in the fourth region when it was resanctioned. It's just that Barron, Allen, and Glasgow were all in the same district, and Barron and Allen were better during that stretch. But Glasgow had 3 or 4 years where they were good, but it's been intermittent since then until the last 10 years. And one of the things Stinson said after that post-game interview last night that I thought was interesting was he didn't want his players to be complacent about getting to the region tournament. He didn't think they were. But to me, it's kind of like that the second level of wealth inheritance sometimes or business inheritance. Sometimes the stats show that second group doesn't really get all how hard it was to get there, and so they don't work quite as hard. I'm not necessarily saying that. I'm just saying they've had success.
In our, it's a bigger accomplishment in certain districts to get to the region. Than in others. Because in certain districts, to be perfectly honest with you, you don't have very many good teams. I'm trying to be as politically correct as possible. In our district, especially in girls basketball, I mean, it's just in the last 10 years, Barron, Glasgow, and Allen have all won regional titles. And you throw in Monroe, who has not, but Monroe has been. I think
they've been to the finals twice.
They've been a dominant program. It has been. There has often been years where you've had 3 teams in the top 20. In the district. So it has been an accomplishment just to get to the region. And of course, Justin will tell you he's also had good players. Bree Glover was a transcendent. She was a great player. Shalika Smith was a heck of a high school player. So he's had really good players too. Haley Perkins,
Ellie Bartley.
I mean, they've had some really, really good players along the way, and so I think sometimes we do take it for granted. Getting to the region. With my bunch, we went, I think, 15 straight years, and then we didn't. And then we didn't again, and becomes so. Sometimes the keep getting there is quite helpful because it gives you that confidence. But but it's not near as easy as people think. And the thing with Glasgow, with Justin's team, they've had some tremendous first-round games.
Oh, yeah.
Because they hadn't always come in as a number one seed.
Right.
They've had some classic battles with Allen, with Monroe mainly, but also with Barron throughout the years.
Yeah.
So it has not been easy to get to the region.
Yeah. Well, congratulations on the season they had. I'm sure they wanted it to be better than it turned out, losing in the first round of the region.
Won 20 games.
Yeah.
Good season.
But it's nothing to be sneezed at, I guess is my whole point there, and as you helped me punctuate. Alyssa Brown Sports Bag brought to you by McDonald's of Glasgow. We'll be right back.
Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's back to the studio with James and John, the Brown Sports Bag.
Well, John, I think what we should do is start with the boys' championship game in the 15th district, because Allen County is like the fourth quarter team of all fourth quarter teams. But man, I'm gonna guess that Warren Cunningham, whatever hair he had left before that game, he was trying to pull it out, because the Trojans were up big, but they hit 5 of 17 free throws in the fourth quarter. And he did point out that his guys, that of all the players outside of Will Bandy, none of them had really been in that kind of game, in that situation before, and you understand that. But at the same time, I'm sure that doesn't make life any easier for a coach.
Yeah, it makes it a little interesting, but I know he was pleased how they played, though. They played great against Allen.
They really did.
They just, you talking about defensively, they were extremely good. I mean, Mason Shirley kind of went off there at the end, but they did a good job on him. They dominated the boards. Shot the ball extremely well from three.
Yeah.
I mean, it was almost they played about as well as they played all year, except for the free throw line, and that enabled the consistent misses at the free throw line in the fourth quarter gave Allen a slight window to make it interesting.
Yeah.
But outside of that, and that's a big part of the game though. But outside of that, Barron played really well.
Yeah, I'm with you. I really thought at the end of the third quarter, I was like, wow, this is – because we've seen that the Trojans have this ability at times this year.
Yes.
But, yeah, it looked like they had put it all together in a way that was superior than any other game during the course of the year. And I was like, well, they've just got this wrapped up. And then – And Allen didn't really get closer than 2 possessions. I mean, they had an opportunity. I think they had one shot to get it to basically a 2-possession game, and they didn't get that. But the other thing that kind of was interesting to me was Aiden Niken. He's a sophomore, and basically from the start of the game, Warren put the ball in his hands because Allen really can't match up with him, and he just went at him. And I thought that just set the tone for the rest of the game, especially the outside shooting, because now all those guys who are out there on the wings, they're getting much easier shots than they would otherwise.
Yeah, he's a difficult matchup for most people. Mm-hmm. And when Aiden's at his best is when he's crashes the offensive boards.
Yeah.
And finishes inside the lane. That's when he's at his absolute best. And he was, he had 24 points and like 14 rebounds, something like that. I thought Will Bandy's playing really well too.
Yeah, he's definitely shooting the lights out.
He's shooting the ball really well. He's found that trailer three off the break. The last post player down that kind of comes from behind, and they've found that niche in the last 2 or 3 weeks. Yeah, and he's really really shooting the ball well. Jacob Shaw shot the ball well in the second game as well, and Barron has been. Really, they have been good defensively all year. Mm-hmm. It's maybe the best defensive team I've seen him have because they're long and they rebound really well too, and that's why I think they have a legitimate chance against Warren Central, because they do rebound and they do defend. Yeah, and that has been the most consistent part of their game. They rarely give up a lot of free points. And when Barron makes enough shots, they're hard to beat. Yeah.
And then in the girls' final, the Trojanettes, I think they went on an 18-0 run in the second quarter. And that pretty much just put a nail in that game because Glasgow just never recovered from it.
It was 16-9 at the end of the first quarter.
Yeah.
Glasgow. Yeah, Glasgow, that's correct. They played a diamond and won, and actually they chased Raven Ennis, who did not score.
That's right.
But Carly Delk took advantage, and she had a career night, and give Carly credit. She had 28 points. I think she only missed 2 shots.
Yeah.
I mean, she was incredible and took advantage of that matchup. But also what Carly was good at, I thought she did a really good job guarding Ashante Gore.
Yeah.
And so she was good on both ends. And then, but the biggest thing, again, was the press. The pressure just really, really got to Glasgow. Now, I don't know if it's fatigue or exactly what, but forced Glasgow into over 20 turnovers. And a lot of those turnovers were live ball turnovers that led to easy shots for Barron, whether it's with Elizabeth Bertram or whatever. They got a lot of kind of easy looks off turnovers from Glasgow. And once that momentum changed, Barron never, ever looked back. I mean, they won going away.
Yeah, and then the Glasgow Scotties, they went out in the first game against Allen County. Mason Shirley, I think, scored the final 14 points of that game for Allen, not of the game itself, but for Allen. Glasgow had a lead, looked like they were in pretty good shape, but they just went cold offensively. They just
and turned it over.
Yeah, and turned it over. I mean, they just could not seem to find any sink in offense. And I really thought, we talked about this going back whenever Jaden Franklin was out for the month. When he came back, we talked about the fact that it was going to take them a little while to get back in sync offensively. And I don't think they ever did. I mean, they had 2.5 weeks basically to get ready for the district tournament, and it just looked like Glasgow never got back in sync offensively, and that was the case in that game as well, I thought.
Similar way that Glasgow girls lost in the region.
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost not exactly the same, but a lot of similarities.
Yeah.
And again, it's a situation where it kind of makes you sick as a coach when you have a lead in the fourth quarter and you look like you're in control of the game.
Yeah.
Heck, they held Allen to 51 points. That's
Right.
They did a great job defensively for most of it.
Yeah.
For most of it. And then to kind of go cold was one thing, but turning it over was the thing that was probably most alarming.
Yeah.
Made some key mistakes down in the last minute of the game that really, really hurt them. And then, you got to give Mason Shirley credit. Whether or not you like him or don't like him, I can tell you one thing: he's a heck of a player.
Yeah.
And he makes big shots. And he scored, I think, 14 out of the last 16, and he made threes, he made free throws, and it seemed like every big play that they needed to be made, he made it.
Well, he had a three-pointer with 45 seconds to go that gave Allen the lead, and I think it was Landon Frazier who was defending him. Mason Shirley had to be 3 feet behind the three-point line, and Landon Frazier was out guarding him.
Right.
I mean, he just hit the shot. I mean, he just pulled it up and hit it.
No, it's again, with comebacks, it's generally two sides to it. The team that comes back has to do something right.
Yeah.
Like make big shots.
Yeah.
And the team that's ahead sometimes has to make some mistakes, and that's kind of what happened. And you're right. Glasgow had so many expectations. I remember talking to Coach Willett before the season.
Yep.
And their expectations were deservedly big. And he made the schedule harder, which he should have done.
Yep.
And but you cannot sometimes injuries are very difficult to overcome, especially in high school, because you can't go get out. You can't replace injured players.
There are no 10-day contracts.
No, they're not. And, the Kirkpatrick loss really hurt them.
Yeah.
Because he was a really good player. He was more than a shooter. He's a good player.
Yeah.
And he was extremely limited after that. And then losing Franklin for, 3 weeks to a month. And they did get Jaden back, but it just, they never, ever rebuilt, it looked like, that chemistry that they could have had if they had gone through the trials and tribulations of a season. And it seemed like they just never could get over the hump. And it's disappointing because a lot of good seniors out of that class.
Yeah, there's 7 seniors on that team.
Yeah, and it's not. No senior wants to go out in the first round of the district. That's not how you want to go. But sometimes that's just what happens.
Yeah.
I mean, it's nobody's fault. You can't. Sometimes injuries happen. And again, it just depends on who. I've been through that. And I've said this on the air before. It's either a reason or an excuse, depending on your perspective.
Right.
Some people call it excuses,
Uh-huh.
but most of the time there are reasons why.
Yeah.
And they're legitimate reasons. And I think that lack of chemistry and injuries ended up being the biggest factor in kind of the end of Glasgow's season.
Yeah. Real quick, we didn't really talk about the boys' region tournament too much in that first segment, but you mentioned that the Barron County drew Warren Central, Allen County drew Bowling Green.
Right. There's no – I was talking to Warren too, Coach Cunningham. There's not a good draw in boys.
No.
I mean, you're going to have to – it doesn't matter. You're going to have to go through Bowling Green and Warren Central more than likely.
Yeah. Unless
somebody else can upset them. So
yeah.
You're going to have to go through them anyway. It's whether you're going to play them the first round or you're going to play them semifinals and finals. And so, if you draw them in the first round, it's just okay. I mean,
right.
it's just the way it is. I mean, but I do think Barron is. I think they've got a team that can play with Warren Central. Now, don't get me wrong. I think Bowling Green and Warren Central are still the two favorites.
Yeah.
And to do it, I mean, they've been in the finals, 15 straight years?
Yeah, I was looking
something
back,
like that. I mean, it's an incredible run.
Yeah,
but the way Barron rebounds and the way they defend, it will give them a chance to win. Now they got to take advantage of it, though.
Mm-hmm.
If they, it's just like if you get in this situation against a team better than you, if you got the shot to win it, you got to make it.
This is kind of the converse of the Barron County Warren East girls matchup. Because Warren Central has been here over and over and over,
right?
Especially this group they have now. They won it last year with this group, and so Barron's not been here in 4 years. Will Band is the only person who's seen Diddle Arena really and
is
played.
It 4 or 3?
Well, they got there. It's 3 years. They got there in 2017, but basically Will Bandy was the only person who got any minutes.
That's true.
So none of these other guys have really seen Diddle Arena.
They're going to have to stay close to Central.
Yeah,
well, they don't need to get behind. 10, 12 points early. They need to stay. They need to stay somewhere close.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Logan has a shot against. If Logan takes care of business, which I think that Logan's got Cumberland. Give Cumberland credit. It's the first time they've been there in 20 years, I believe.
Right.
And if Bowling Green beats Allen, that sets up that Bowling Green Logan County semifinal. And I think Logan has again. I think Bowling Green will be the favorite, but I can see an opportunity where Logan is good enough, and I think Barron. It's not that Bowling Green and Warren Central are vulnerable; it's that I think Logan and Bowling Green has enough talent to play with those guys.
Yeah, you mentioned Cumberland County. The last time they were there was when Brandon Combs was the coach, and I believe the guy who is their head coach now played for Combs on that team. It's like 2008 or so.
Yeah, they pulled off the upset, knocked off Russell County at Russell County.
Yeah, that's right.
It's a good story for them.
Yep. Congratulations to them getting there. And that tournament starts. The boys tournament starts tomorrow, Tuesday, and then Barron plays on Wednesday.
Tuesday, Wednesday, Monday, Tuesday.
Yep. So, and those games can also be heard on 103.7 Ash Icon on here as well and online.
Yeah, Barron Warren Central is tomorrow at 6.
Yep.
Wednesday at 6. Wednesday at 6, that's right.
Yeah, my days are all bleeding together because they started that thing on Sunday. I keep thinking I'm like, if we weren't doing this show today, I'd think it was Tuesday all day.
That's right.
Well, this is Brown Sports Bag brought to you by McDonald's of Glasgow. We'll be right back.
Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's back to the studio with James and John, the Brown Sports Bag.
Well, John, the WKU Hilltoppers had a couple of wild games in a row, didn't they? I mean, they rallied to win on Thursday, and then they lost in overtime yesterday. So, I mean, and both those were in overtime.
Yeah, speaking of comebacks.
Yes.
I mean, they were down 15 with about 3 minutes to go.
That's right. And then Tavion Hollingsworth just went wild.
40-something points.
43. His career high. I think it was the most by Hilltopper since sometime in the 90s. I don't remember what the last one was.
Well, we sat here and talked about when Bassey was lost.
Yeah.
I think I made the comment that the only way that they're ever going to come close to overcome it is they're going to have to be the scrappiest team in the country.
Uh-huh.
They're going to have to really get after you and just out scrap and outwork people because they're going to be small.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what they've ended up being. They become a team. It's kind of neat to watch, to be perfectly honest with you.
Yeah, it's they're more entertaining in so many ways than they were before, just out of necessity.
That's correct. I mean, Carson Williams, 6'6", playing the post.
Yeah.
Hollingsworth moving back to his 2-guard. I mean, they've just Jared Savage has had a tremendous senior year, and they have become extremely entertaining to watch. When they win, I mean, they're putting up 80s and 90 points, and they've had these wild comebacks.
Yeah.
And it's been fun to watch. And unfortunately, they lost after the Thursday night game. They lost yesterday in overtime as well at North Texas, but they played extremely well.
Yeah.
And actually, Hollingsworth had a chance to win it. He missed 2 free throws with 5 seconds to go with the game tied, and he missed those, and they ended up losing in overtime. But
if you're into Greek tragedies, those are called the myths or whatever, because you have the game where you're heroic, and then you have the game where you're like, all right, I just got to do the simplest of things, and then they come back to get you. The Greek tragedies of basketball, I suppose.
Yep, and but it was North Texas that was for the conference title.
Yeah.
But listen, it's not easy in Conference USA. I mean, you play Thursday night at home, and then they put you on a plane and send you to North Texas.
Yeah. Welcome to Denton.
Yeah, I mean that's not an easy travel, and to go down there and play well and just get beat.
Yeah.
They've done. Got to give the team credit and give the coaching staff credit.
Yeah.
They've overcome a whole lot this year.
We still have the conference tournament to go, and I don't know. I mean, North Texas is the favorite, I would say, going into the conference.
Conference champions.
Yeah. But with what we've seen, I'm not saying anybody can win the tournament, but there are 5 or 6 teams on any given night who can probably win a wild game.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Western can win it. The only problem that they're going to run into is their lack of depth.
Yeah.
In the way they play. It's got to be a little bit of concern. Can they win 3 in a row? Mm-hmm. With back to back to back with energy they're going to have. That's the only question.
Yeah, and I think some of the regular season, when we've seen these Thursday, Saturdays during the course of the year, they've struggled, especially not at home, to win consecutive games.
Yeah.
That second game has been a bugaboo for them a number of times during the course of the year, or the first one, and then they come back and win the second one. So they've really...
Of course, when you're playing for an NCAA tournament bid, sometimes you can summon more energy. Mm-hmm. It's adrenaline.
Yeah.
And playing for that title hopefully will be enough to do that.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of the nifty thing about NCAA, not the tournament itself, but the conference tournaments that I've always found to some degree even more interesting in some ways than the NCAA tournament, is you see these teams that just get rolling in the conference tournaments, and because of the structure of them, there's no break, there's no chance to catch your breath for a week or whatever. I mean, you're just rolling them, and one team, they catch that fire, and you just see them just do things that you don't expect them to.
Well, Western has played well in them.
Yeah.
We either have won it or been right there in the finals. Had a tough loss to Marshall, things like that. So it's a tournament that the toppers are very, very obviously experienced at and capable of winning.
Yeah. And then the Lady Toppers, they had a wild one on Saturday, right, against Middle Tennessee. What is it, 108, 103 and double overtime?
108, 103, double overtime.
Yeah, I mean, that. And what's funny is there was another game, and it was a Conference USA game. I don't remember who was in it. The final of that game was like 52-50. And I thought, well, that's funny. You just look at these two scores side by side.
It was actually 49-31. It was Charlotte over FIU.
That's right.
And that's the Lady Toppers play Charlotte this, Thursday.
Yeah, surely they can win that one.
Well, Charlotte's pretty good.
They are.
Yeah, but it was a tough loss. I mean, it was an incredible game. I listened to the last of the fourth quarter and to the double overtimes. I got to listen to it, and Whitney Creech made 2 free throws with 0.2 seconds on the clock just to send it into overtime. And you're talking about pressure.
Right.
That's pressure, and she stepped up and, it's a shame. I mean, Alexis Brewer had her best game of the year. She had 28.
Yeah.
I mean, there's several people. I mean, Whitney Creech.
Dee Givens, I think, had 24.
She had 24.
Yeah.
El Jadawi had 19. Creech was like 20. I mean, when you score 104, a lot of people are going to score.
Right.
But Middle has some good players too, and this Hayes girl who's really good. She had 37, and Western was kind of playing uphill most of the game. They didn't rebound as well as they've been in the past. And of course that's a huge rivalry. I mean, they had a good crowd there, like 3,500, which is a good crowd.
Yeah.
And tough loss, but it's broke a 10-game winning streak, I believe, or maybe it was a 9-game winning streak. They won 10 out of 11. And when you get your streak broken in double overtime on the road, at least they're still playing well.
Yeah,
and they are.
And you'll be at the game Thursday. They have 2 games
Thursday
left,
and Saturday. That's right. I'll be at both of them.
Yeah, that's going back to the regional tournaments. Those are the things that kind of broke up the rhythm of the regional tournaments this year, because there'll be no regional games on Thursday, and then the girls' championship will be Saturday at 7.
That's correct.
Well, after the Lady Toppers play earlier that day.
At 2.
Yeah, at 2. But yeah, so the Lady Toppers are in pretty good shape. I guess Rice is still.
It's no, Old Dominion is number 1. Rice is 2.
Yeah.
And Western and Middle are, I think, tied for 3rd.
Yeah. Do you think this is a year that we could get 2 teams out of Conference USA in the
I think it's
NCAA
possible.
tournament?
I mean, RPI, the Lady Toppers RPI was in the low 30s.
Yeah.
Going into last week. I don't think the Middle loss on the road is going to hurt them that much. Mm-hmm. The Lady Toppers are by far good enough to win this tournament.
Yeah.
And the question is, who wins it? If the right team wins it, I think Western has a shot to get a bid, especially with an RPI in the 30s. If the wrong team wins it, then it just depends on how far the Lady Toppers go.
Yeah.
Old Dominion right now is probably in the best shape of anybody.
So the right team winning it, would that be Old Dominion
That's
or Rice?
correct. No, if Old Dominion wins it and say they defeat the Lady Toppers in the finals, I think there's a real opportunity to get 2 teams in.
So is Rice basically out of the mix, and if they don't win it?
Their RPI is pretty low.
Yeah.
It surprises me. I mean, they've got 6 or 7 losses, and their RPI is like in the 80s.
Yeah. I guess they have not quite gone as well because they started the season in the top 25.
They did, but they've not quite had the years they had last year, and it's surprising because they have most of their players back.
Yeah. Meanwhile, let's talk a little bit about the Wildcats, Kentucky, and the Louisville Cardinals.
Both playing well.
They are both playing well.
I've moved Kentucky up to a legitimate Final Four team. The more I watch them,
we need to start doing a Butler Final Four bracket.
The more I like them, more I watch them, the more I like them. I really like their guards.
Yeah.
I mean, Quigley is playing incredibly well.
Right.
And so is Maxey. Now, Ashton Higgins is not playing quite as well as he was earlier, but he's more than capable. And then Nick Richards on the inside is just, he's just been a tremendous player. I think they got a legitimate chance. The only thing that bothers me at times is they'll go a little cold from the 3-point line. Now they're overcoming that because they're a great free throw shooting team.
Yeah,
but Coach Cal just seems like to me he gets the biggest kick in life out of winning a game without making a 3. I've never seen a coach just more giddy about going 2 for 18 and still winning. And I don't know if that's a recipe that you can't do that very often in the NCAA tournament. I mean, you have to be able to make 3s.
Yeah,
and that's the only thing that would bother me a little bit about Kentucky. But I really it's my favorite Kentucky team that I've watched in the last so many years.
Yeah,
Louisville, on the other hand, when the reemergence of David Johnson has been a huge factor for them. Mm-hmm. They got beat at Florida State last week on Monday. Yeah. That's not a terrible loss. They led most of the game and then just got kind of ran out of the gym late. But I think Florida State's really good. I think Louisville's got if they just go through stretches where they simply can't score for whatever reason. Mm-hmm. And they got one of the best scorers in the country in Jordan Nora, but I've watched them too many times where they go 5 or 6 minutes in the second half and they don't score a lick. But
it's like they forget who can score for them, and they just don't get that person the ball.
Yeah, and their weakness at times is their guard play, and that's never a good weakness.
Yeah,
that's why David that's why I call him William. David Johnson from Trinity is such a big factor.
Yeah.
I mean, 6'5" guard. He's their best guard in my opinion. He's got to play.
Yeah. Well, I think it's turning out to be a pretty fascinating year for the both of them because I would have guaranteed you about midway through December Coach Calipari was going to be not on the hot seat for being fired, but just on the forums because it looked like Kentucky just did not have a designed plan at all.
Well, they lost to Evansville, who's lost 18 in a row. Evansville went 0-18 in the Missouri Valley.
Yeah, and Walter McCarty got fired in the process
and
for
that
other reasons.
And that loss still haunts them because
Yes.
it keeps their ranking down in terms of their net rating or RPI rating or whatever.
Right.
That quadrant 4 loss is really hurt them in terms of their seeding.
Yeah. Yeah, so, I mean, I really think he's done a masterful job, almost incidentally in some ways, just because the way some things worked out.
He's done a good job.
Yeah.
All 3 coaches in the state, just like in football, have
Yep.
done a good job.
They have indeed. Good group of coaches at the moment. We talk about Calipari's recruiting all the time because it's always on the blue chip list of talking about. But, I mean, Stansbury has put together a team that's capable of doing things and differently than designed.
One with arguably his best player and the point guard he was counting on for coming in.
Yeah. So, I mean, he took the guys he has there and
On the fly, kind of moved them around. He's done a really good job.
yep. Well, this is Brown Sports Bag brought to you by McDonald's of Glasgow. We'll be right back.
Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's back to the studio with James and John, the Brown Sports Bag.
Well, John, I'm going to give you a little quiz here as we
I gave a quiz today in class.
Did you? Mm-hmm. What kind of quiz did you have today?
On the presidents.
Oh, yeah?
Presidential quiz, yes.
What were some of your questions on their quiz?
About like impeachments and the 25th Amendment, things that most people aren't concerned with.
Things that once they get out of school, it's like
That's
geometry,
right. That's
right? They're never
right.
going to worry about it
The
again.
role of the vice president, things like that. Inauguration day.
Oh, that's not all. None of
There you
that's
go.
all that important.
There you
Come
go.
on, let's be for real. All right, here's my quiz for you. This is related to the 4th region, girls especially.
Girls, okay.
All right, we're going to start there. Can you name the school that has won the most 4th region tournaments?
Barron has won 6. Mm-hmm. Allen.
Yep, they've won 8.
Okay.
And then Barron and Warren East and Franklin Simpson have all won 6.
Okay.
Allen won 3 of their 8 in the first 5 years, and then they won 3 in a row. What was it, 99, 2000, 2001, something like that, which I didn't realize they were that good right at the turn of the century. So
Yeah, they beat us in overtime in 2000.
Is that right?
Finals of the region.
Yeah. I mean, so that was kind of a little glory run there for them. Warren East, of course, won. They've kind of split it up. They won 3, I think, in the 80s and 3 in the 90s.
That's right.
They had a good run in the middle 90s when Blaine Embry was there.
Yep.
I think that's when LaVonda Johnson played there as well. Is that right?
Yeah.
And maybe did their present coach play there during that stretch?
Jenny Jones.
Yep.
Sure did.
I think her name's Neville now.
That's
Is that
correct.
what it is. And then Franklin Simpson, they won the bulk of theirs. I think they won 3 in the aughts with Lex Lindsay, and I think they won just interspersed through the other years.
Damon Tabor.
Yeah, Damon Tabor, that's right. And then Bowling Green's won 5. They've all been in this decade.
That's correct.
Warren Central won 3. They also are the only team out of the region to win a state championship.
Clement Haskins.
Yep, that is right. And then Clinton County won 3. They won all 3 of them with the
Guffey girls.
Yep. Glasgow's won 2. That's since Justin Simpson's been there. Logan County's won 2. I think they won them both in the mid-'80s, late 80s, somewhere in there. Now, on the flip side, let's talk about the boys a little bit. So can you name the last team to win a regional title not from the 14th district?
Russellville.
Yep. Can you guess how many 14th district teams have – no, not how many teams. How many times since 1968 the 14th district has won the 4th region tournament boys?
14th district.
Yep.
30.
17.
17. Okay.
Well, this is Brown Sports Bag brought to you by McDonald's of Glasgow. We'll be back next week.
Thanks for listening, and be sure and join James and John once again next Monday at 4 for the Brown Sports Bag, a local weekly sports machine presented by McDonald's of Glasgow. Coming soon to your FM dial, this is Fox Sports Radio, WCDS Glasgow, AM 1230.